Each day, thousands of shipments of chemicals and other hazardous substances are transported by ship, rail, and truck from manufacturers to the point of use. When fully contained, these products present no danger to people, animals, or the environment. If an incident should occur, however, and an unconfined hazardous material is released, emergency responders are often the first people called to identify the material. Using a generic response to an unidentified substance is dangerous and could cause further harm. Always take the time to know before you go whenever you suspect the presence of hazardous materials at a scene. In this program, you will see different systems that are used for identifying hazardous material. The objectives of this program are to identify the 9 hazard classes defined by the U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, recognize the DOT marking signs used in transporting hazardous materials, know how to use the Emergency Response Guidebook to determine the identity and potential hazard of a placarded hazardous material, and to describe the NFPA 704 marking system. To make the transport of hazardous materials safer, the U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, has created a system of identifying hazardous materials during their movement by air, rail, water, on roadways, or through pipelines. The DOT system established 9 hazard classes, which identify what type of potential hazard the product presents in the event of a spill or release. The 9 DOT hazard classes are: Class 1, explosives. Explosives run the gamut from mass explosion hazard materials such as dynamite to minor explosion hazards such as detonation cord. Class 2, gases. This includes both flammable and non-flammable gases, as well as poison gases. Class 3, flammable liquids. You see a lot of these marked shipments around because gasoline and fuel oils are in this class. Class 4, flammable solids, spontaneously combustible materials, and dangerous when wet materials. This includes magnesium ribbons and explosives that are wetted with water or alcohol. Class 5, oxidizers and organic peroxides. These materials produce oxygen, which makes them dangerous in a fire because they can feed a fire, making the fire burn more intensely. Class 6, poisonous materials, which includes chemicals such as arsenic or biological toxins such as anthrax or botulism. Class 7, radioactive materials. These materials are further divided into radioactive level 1, 2, or 3, with level 3 being the most hazardous. Class 8, corrosives. These include both acids and bases, which can destroy skin or corrode steel or aluminum. Class 9, miscellaneous hazardous materials. This class often includes hazardous waste and is a catch-all category for things that don't fit into the other 8 classes. Extremely dangerous materials, such as highly sensitive explosives or poisonous gases, require placarding to transport any amount. But many less hazardous classes do not require a placard if the shipment contains less than 1,001 pounds or 454 kilograms. Keep in mind, however, that a fire or traffic accident involving a 900-pound or 400-kilogram shipment of almost any type of hazardous material could really ruin your day. DOT placards are helpful to you because there are clues on each placard that you can use to recognize and identify the hazardous material. Let's look at some sample placards for each hazard class. You need to know the color and symbol clues for each class because you will probably be identifying placards from a distance, and the wording and numbers may be difficult to see. The first hazard class is explosives. The placards are orange, with an explosion symbol at the top. Some explosive placards will not show the symbol, but will instead have the hazard class and division, such as 1.5, and descriptive words, such as blasting agent. The second class, gases, has 4 different colors used for the placards. Non-flammable gases are green, with a cylinder symbol in the upper part of the placard. Flammable gases are red, with a flame symbol. Toxic or poison gases are white, with a skull and crossbones symbol. And oxidizer gases, such as oxygen, are yellow, with a flaming circle symbol. Class 3 flammable liquids are marked with a red placard with a flame symbol and the words flammable, combustible, flammable liquid, or the type of material in the center.
Class 4 flammable solids, spontaneously combustible and dangerous when wet placards are red, red and white striped, half red, half white, or blue placards. The wording on each tells the specific hazard. Class 5 hazardous materials are oxidizers that require yellow placards with the burning circle symbol, and organic peroxides that have a half-red, half-yellow placard. Class 6, which includes poisonous materials, is marked with white placards with a skull and crossbones for the most toxic or poisonous materials. Radioactive materials are Class 7,
and the placards contain the trifoil symbol, a small circle with 3 fan blades around it. The placards are either half yellow and half white or all white.
Class 8 corrosive placards are half black and half white with the symbol of test tubes dripping on a bar in a hand.
Finally, Class 9 miscellaneous hazardous materials are placarded with a white placard with the upper half showing a series of black vertical bars. There is one other widely used placard, the dangerous placard, which is primarily red, with a white stripe containing the word dangerous in large letters across the middle. Dangerous is used when the shipper is transporting a mixed load of hazardous materials of less than 5,000 pounds or 2,270 kilograms of any one type. Placards are used to give you a clue that hazardous materials are present. But be aware, it is estimated that as many as 20% of the trucks carrying hazardous materials do not have placards or are placarded incorrectly. The Emergency Response Guidebook is a valuable tool for identifying the specific product involved. The guidebook is published by the U.S. Department of Transportation, Transportation Canada, and the Secretariat of Communications and Transportation of Mexico. A copy of this book is available for every emergency response apparatus in the United States. The guidebook is revised every 3 years. It is often referred to as the DOT book, the Orange Book, or the ERG. This book lists most of the commonly transported chemicals that are regulated by the DOT. The Response Guidebook is divided into different colored sections to help you locate information quickly. The first section has yellow bordered pages. It lists the chemicals by UN number in numerical order. You would use this section if you have a placard or other identifying number but do not know the name of the chemical. The next section has blue bordered pages. It lists chemicals by name in alphabetical order. Use this section if you know the name of the chemical. You may get the name from bills of lading or an on-site supervisor. The orange bordered section is the guide section. This section tells you what to do once you have identified the type of chemical involved. The last section in the book has green borders. This section gives you evacuation and isolation information for the most dangerous chemicals. Notice that some of the chemicals listed in the yellow and blue sections are highlighted. The highlighted chemicals will appear in the green section, showing specific isolation and protective actions to take. The highlighted chemicals have the ability to become airborne, making them much more potentially dangerous to people and the environment. The chemicals that are not highlighted will not appear in the green section. However, all of the chemicals listed in the blue and yellow sections will have a corresponding guide in the orange section. Let's look at how you use the guidebook at an emergency scene. From a safe distance, the responders can see the placard and the number on the placard to begin identifying the material. In this case, the corrosive placard and the number 1830 gives them the information they need to use the guidebook. They use the yellow pages of the guidebook to look up the chemical number 1830 and find that it is sulfuric acid. They also see that next to the chemical number 1830 is a guide number, which in this case is 137. The guide number refers to the orange pages. At Guide 137, the responders find the potential hazards and the correct emergency response procedures to take for this chemical. For first responders, the public safety section of the guide is especially helpful. Here you will find information about what level of protective clothing is needed and if evacuation may be necessary. Initial response activities are outlined on the facing page. Distances for materials that require isolation and evacuation are provided in the green section. When hazardous materials are stored or used at an occupancy, one of the most common identification systems is the NFPA 704 marking system. The NFPA 704 placards are diamond-shaped squares, similar to the DOT placard system. But within the square, there are 4 smaller squares that indicate the level of 4 different types of hazards. A level of hazard is indicated by the numbers 0 to 4, with 4 being the most hazardous. The top square is red and indicates the degree of fire hazard. A 0 means the material will not burn. A 4 means an extremely flammable product. The right-hand square is yellow and indicates the reactivity hazard. Reactivity means whether the material is unstable when shocked or placed under pressure. A 4 means the product can detonate or explode easily. A 0 means it's normally stable. The left-hand square is blue and indicates the health hazard to people. A 4 means if you're in standard firefighting protective clothing, it presents a severe risk to health. A 0 means there is no known health hazard. The bottom square is white and indicates any special hazard that the material may present, such as whether or not the material is explosive or reactive with water. Sometimes a number is used,
or sometimes a short abbreviation such as OX for an oxidizing agent.
A /W indicates water reactivity and is especially important for firefighters because it indicates that the material is water reactive. Because facilities often contain dozens, if not hundreds, of hazardous materials, the NFPA 704 system is usually used to warn of the highest level of concern. You must always check with the occupant to determine exactly what is in the building. The system only gives you a first warning of the potential danger. In this program on hazardous materials identification, you have seen the 9 hazard classes defined by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the DOT marking signs used in transporting hazardous materials, how to use the Emergency Response Guidebook, and a brief description of the NFPA 704 marking system. Hazardous materials at an incident present firefighters with a challenging and potentially complex scenario. Remember that these materials can explode, poison, corrode, ignite at room temperature, or cause radiation exposure, to name just a few of the potential hazards. The ability of the first response team to identify exactly what is involved in an incident is essential to protecting both the public and the environment in a hazardous materials emergency. Use the resources at your disposal to know before you go and make every response a safe response.